Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, depending on where you're watching from. And welcome to another edition of our in service podcast here at Service Council. I am Gerardo Pelayo, the Chief of Research at here in Service Council at this organization. And I'm very glad that you joined today. I'm extremely excited about 2026. If you've been following along, we've already had a couple of podcasts, we've had a webinar, we've had a lot of activity underway, and we haven't even wrapped up January. And in line with drinking our own Kool-Aid on many of the things that we recommend into our community, which is we have to continue innovating, we have to set expectations, and we have to communicate the purpose of the things that we're going to do. Today, I will be spending some time going through what that calendar looks like for us at Surface Council, what's new about it, and even the things that have become part of our core cadence. They continue to evolve because the environment that we operate in continues to evolve, and the questions that we get asked and the ways in which we can support that is always changing. So we may not take the entire half hour. I'll try to do it as easygoing as possible, but I do want again to set those expectations, provide clarity on what's coming. And one thing I will call out is as I'm going through this and many of these things land, I would always welcome your thoughts, your reactions, your feedback. Yesterday we had a webinar where one of the key points was how to identify or try to cover for the blind spots that we might have because we don't know what we don't know. So always happy to leverage the community's perspective in order to make sure our agenda is covering all relevant bases. And with that, let me start, and I'll leverage a couple of banners here as we go along um, to to make some of the content easier to absorb. And you see that the overall we're going to have 9 surveys, one of which is completely new, the voice of the customer. I'll be talking about that in a second. We're having 7 service journey days. These are those events for those of you who have not taken part in any yet. This is how we engage our membership in an in-person event, single day, where we host the conversation at one of our member organizations. And that way we learn about their practices, we understand their context, and we bring together a group of 30 to 50 of a few of service leaders to think about a particular problem in a structured manner that goes through 3 workshops. So it's roundtables, it's learning from the host organization, and then at the end of the day, we tend to have a little bit of a networking activity where many of the good conversations spill over. This last year we had 6 of these events, tremendous success. I particularly learned a lot from them, and many of you keep coming back to those, so I know they're resonating. This year we're having one more, and as part of our part of our vision to have a larger presence in Europe and really put into practice that outside the box thinking. Learn about other cultures, other assumptions, other ways in which many of the challenges are being tackled, and understand what can be adapted. How can we think differently, or think better, or just learn from the lessons of different latitudes in our community. So we're going to have 3 of these service journey days in Europe, 4 more in the US. It's going to be a real interesting agenda, and I'll describe each one of them in a second. And these research tracks and the service journey days, they're supplemented by a constant flow of activity that we're going to have first on our digital platforms, where we you can expect over 10 webinars where we bring in a practitioner in partnership with one of their solution providers to understand how are they going around change and achieving their objectives and meeting their challenges. So that's going to be typically on a monthly cadence. It will vary slightly a month to month. We will have over 20 in-service podcasts like the one we're having today. As if you're familiar with with this venue, you know that we usually have a guest, and it's all about learning about the person, learning about their challenges, their objectives, and how are they going around it. What have they learned? What are the questions that they still have? And it's another way in which we build a tighter community where we continue to learn and share with one another. A slight call out on that. Last year, we broke all records on the In Service podcast, and I do want to thank our viewership for that. The number of people logging in to watch this, whether it's live um, or after the recording, it was just humbling. So thank you, and we hope to, and we will put a lot of effort into continue to deliver value through this venue. And all of that final thing, it comes together in our largest gathering of the year, which is the Smarter Services Executive Symposium. This year's theme, and I'll give you a link to a short 4 or 5 minute introduction that John made about the vision and the purpose of that in itself. I don't want to repeat myself here and use the time differently, but I can tell you I'm very excited about the approach that we're taking this year. The theme that we've selected is the service first enterprise growth through symbiosis, driving growth through symbiosis. And first off, we believe to our core that service has a place within the strategic goals of the organization, and how far can that strategy take the overall company within its vision. So that's the purpose. Second piece, it's more than efficiency in my view, and it's growth, and growth can take on many shapes. There's a financial, there's a customer footprint, there's the appeal to bring in talent, the reputation. There's it's a very um, diverse set of elements that could make up that definition. But the key element to me, and this is what I'm most bullish about, is the approach, the how, and that's symbiosis. We often talk about synergy and how overall the system is going to be better, and that makes sense. And I grew up with synergy as an industrial and systems engineer, but turns out that the most recurrent challenge that I heard last year, as leaders try to put in place all these great initiatives and bring in a lot of sound technology and resources and talent, continues to be change management. And as we sat back and thought about this, we asked the question of, does everybody on the table understand what's in it for them? Is it making sense for everybody, or does it only make sense for the overall organization? So that's the point around symbiosis. It's connecting the dots more explicitly across functions, so that by investing in one area of the service value chain, we know how that's impacting the rest of the organization and the overall objective. That each organization understands that, and that the different personas that come into play, whether it's the service leadership, whether it's the frontline, and the role in innovation and change and adaptation, and what makes most sense, as well as the delivery, and even the customers. Do they understand the value that we're providing as as a service operation? Do they understand and can self-allocate to the commercial structures that might be new and haven't really permeated? Do can we find better ways of distributing risk with our customers, as well as with some of the partners in the extended service supply chain? So that symbiosis is going to be core, and it's the reason why the research tracks that I'm going to be quickly going through in just a second are not isolated. None of it is a silo. And with every survey that we launch, with every briefing that we have, we continue to accumulate and reconcile the knowledge that we're building, so that we are able to share the storylines and get the community's perspective as we go along that. So that was already a bit of a mouthful. Taking a quick pause before I get into the month by month cadence, and once again, inviting you to include in the chat any comments, key focus areas, key challenges, key areas of interest that you or your organization might have, so that we can be of better service to you, to the community. So let me quickly go through. Right now, I said we've been busy during January, and we currently have two research surveys in market. That is, first off, the KPIs and metrics survey. We're in the very last days of collection for that. I'll be including the link after the fact in the comments of the webinar in case you haven't and want to participate. But with each one of the surveys, I'll tell you what is the element that I'm most interested in learning, and why do we continue to launch the surveys. So with the KPIs and metrics, it's not just a list of KPIs, of measurements, and seeing where everybody's at, but it's really understanding why do we have the KPIs that we have. So a key element that we added this year was, first off, understanding the overall mandate of the service leader responding to the survey, whether it's driving efficiency, reducing risk, modernizing the infrastructure, driving growth within the organization, and then understanding what are the KPIs that are important for them given that mandate. And I believe that's going to give us a lot of color and truly understand what are the things that make most sense. I just published a blog, for example, around the value of field rate and the different definitions that it can have or can take, not necessarily the right ones, but it still does across organizations. And that's the kind of critical thinking that we want to bring to the forefront. We also have the voice of the contact center agent in market. Also, in the last weeks of collection, some of our members requested that they wanted uh, to to share the survey during the first months of 2026, and we've adapted to that. And in order to make sure that we once again, like last year, have a robust benchmark that we can learn from, and and then communicate our findings. But the thing that we haven't launched yet this year is our service leaders agenda. And here's where we understand what's driving the strategy. What is it that service leaders are most concerned with accomplishing? And the key element that I want to understand this year is the how, because I've heard widely different stories on, do we continue running pilots, especially as we think about the integration with AI? Is it time to go to really bet and go into full scale production? Do we completely take a step back, wait and see and learn from others, and continue the assess um, continue the assess evolution of what's going on? So the service leaders agenda always gives us the starting point for what can we expect during the rest of the year. And I apologize, I stumbled there for a second. I was seeing some comments. If any of our viewers um, can help me and confirm in the chat that we're live, that will be appreciated. And I thank you. I see a private comment there already. So that's goodness. Picking up some steam. So February, we had the first of our service journey days. Thank you to Harold Hill and the the leadership team at Agilent Technologies. We're going to be talking about the service lifecycle management, how to truly live by this mindset. What does it mean? What are the elements that need to be a part of it? We're going to be in Delaware for that, and critical topic that somehow we hadn't addressed in a dedicated format in the last 12, 18 months, we are going to cover it in depth over here. I believe there's still some spaces. If you want to join us there, reach out to myself or Jacqueline, and we'll get the ball rolling. We're also launching our AI and service technology survey, which connects straight with the service leaders agenda into the how. What are the supporting capabilities that service leaders need, and how are they thinking about assessing technology in order to make better decisions, in order to make more confident decisions, and what is the role that they are expecting from their solution partners? Is it more of a software play? How deep do they want advice from, or even a direct implementation and execution as they go along? We go into March, and we have our second service journey day, the first one in Europe. We're going to be in Glasgow. Thank you to Mike Hughes. He's going to be our host at Peak Scientific. And as we build on the learnings from the AI and service technology, the theme here is going to be around the role of AI in driving and improving the experience of the front line. How can it truly become a resource, something that the front line is excited about, that welcomes, and that really translates into a better day to day? One red flag that we saw from our Voice of the Frontline research last year was that while productivity, the sense of productivity and efficiency were going up, the answer that worried me the most is that on the perception whether technology was making their day-to-day easier, um, the the proportion that agrees is dropping for 2 consecutive years now. It was in the low 70s 2 years ago, high 60s, and only 62% of uh, of the frontline agrees that technology is making it easier for them to get their work done. It should be moving in the other way, and we're gonna get together and understand what can we do differently in order to achieve that goal. During Q2, we continue with our research. Oh, sorry, and before I get to that, in March, I we will be launching the service supply chain survey as well. Most of the collection period on this one is going to extend through April. That's why I was jumping ahead of myself. But the big question to me on service supply chain this year is it really going to be the year where AI plays a role, not just in the back end of the supply chain and driving a lot of the efficiencies there, but truly in making better decisions, becoming a decision support engine that the planners and everybody involved in the supply chain truly trusts and utilizes. We saw an earlier effort in technology and all sorts of supply chain optimization engines that were sort of utilized, but to this day, I still see a lot of service supply chains that largely leverage Excel and and some macros and algorithms and rules of thumb that some very smart guy developed internally, and it hasn't broken the system yet, and it continues to get utilized. Is this going to be one way in which we truly match the complexity of the service supply chain with capabilities that put us in a better position to address those challenges? I've already started to see some examples of that in small pockets, including with some of our members. So I'm really hoping to see that at large. We're going to be learning about that through the survey. In April, we launch our remote state of remote support and self troubleshooting survey, and that's going to be followed up by our second service journey day in the states. Let me tackle each one at a time. On remote support, the big question and the big thing that I'm hearing bets around is it's probably the area of the service value chain that will require the most integration across different technologies. We've heard a lot about the potential of IoT data into remote support and how much um, of relevant intelligence it can provide to the experts over the phone or over chat. But it's not just that. I am now hearing more and more about the role of augmented reality in these setups as technology continues to evolve and get better. The role of a video, whether it's for customers to directly send the video ahead of time, and this helping to reduce dispatches, to reduce the bandwidth, or to increase the bandwidth, reduce the stress of the queue for remote support, technical support agents. It's also on the sharing and video becoming a better resource for technical support to better advise the customers to get over that ramp up period and the old time to value that the organization requires, but also look at it from the other perspective, how to make sure that the agent feels like they're in a position to win, that they're in a position to add value from early on, rather than feeling like they have to go to the expert all the time, or getting frustrated with the knowledge base, which is something many of you have heard, I'm sure. We're gonna be in most likely it's to be confirmed. But here in my hometown, in or my current home in Austin, at Dell Technologies, where the idea is to talk about governance, as we look at the different partners that can exist in the service supply chain, but governance with purpose. It's not just a whip, but it's how can we leverage that governance to drive innovation at the right pace, to drive compliance where it's needed, to be all moving in the same direction, and get the intelligence that is required across the different partners quickly enough and to the right personas, to in order to work in a truly collaborative way. And this goes back to the theme I mentioned earlier about symbiosis. Um, and before I will not be taking that much time, probably during the second half of the years. We'll surely do an update, but I do want to highlight the voice of the customer survey that we're launching in May. This is the one completely new survey that we're putting out there. And let me tell you first about what it's not going to be. It's We're not going to go out to the customers of our membership and see if they're happy or not. What this is going to be about is understanding how service organizations are capturing the voice of the customer. What are the metrics that they're using for this? What's the level of trust that they have? And especially, what are they doing with it? Are we better off because we're collecting this data? Or is it just data that's going out there to die, or being presented in some report and the QBRs? We really want to drive it in the other direction, understand what are the best practices to make that voice of the customer actionable, to capture the data that truly is going to not just tell us are we doing good or bad, or not, but that is also going to tell us why, so that we can do something differently, so that we can do something about it. So it's one that I'm very proud that we're launching this, and it's going to have a slightly extended collection period for that. I do see we have a couple of comments in the chat, and again, I'll be sharing the links to the service journey days that are coming up. If you want to register, if as long as there's still space, they're filling up quickly. About the Smarter Services Executive Symposium that we're having once again in Chicago, September 14th to the 16th, 3-day event, 500 attendees. Last year, practitioner driven, like truly not like like other trade shows that you see out there. So all of that will be in the chat after this event. And going back to the second part of the year, during the summer, for those of you that will not spend the entire period watching the World Cup, actually right before, we're gonna be in Europe for a second service journey day hosted by the GEA group. Um, battling one of the myths that that we tend to hear of. There's a trade-off that we have to choose between growth and sustainability, and we're going to learn how this can actually fit on each other and what's required from a leadership perspective in order um, to drive that growth and and that appeal within the organization, using sustainability as one of the engines in order to drive that growth. During July, we're going to go to Otis Elevators uh, for another service journey day in the States. And before we've talked about service supply chain and the role that it can have, here it's going to be more around the integration with, yes, there's service parts that are critical in the elevators business, for example. But how does it really tie into the overall service experience, in particular the remote support elements that we see out there? So very connecting the dots oriented workshop, that one. Throughout the summer, we will be collecting uh, the inf- the the responses to our largest research effort of the year, which is the voice of the field service engineer. And right before the symposium, we're going to be talking about or doing an extra effort collecting updated data for service index. That, for those of you who may be less familiar with, it's a maturity framework that we developed within Service Council to assess an organization's readiness to deliver against the experience from the perspective of three personas: the customer experience, the employee experience, and the business experience. So there's a self assessment survey that our members can take. And this is really meant as an ongoing activity where every 6 months, every year, we calibrate progress along that. We're going to launch that large scale effort in August. But just for your awareness, this one is the one survey that is actually available throughout the year. So for our membership out there, if you're interested in learning more about the methodology or directly taking the assessment, you can reach out to me, and I'll be happy um, to share the details on that. I've spoken about the symposium, and that deserves a whole session of its own. But let me just spend the last 2 minutes talking about the last quarter of the year, where in a lot of places things start to slow down. Not here, not this year. We're gonna be going to Budapest in Europe. Unisys is going to be our host. Many thanks, as well as to all our hosts earlier. Didn't call out Kate Verspril at Otis, Lucas Rigotto at the GEA Group. And here at Unisys, we're going to be learning about the multi-vendor structure and how to be successful within that. And that's not just the engagement with the customer, but how do we organize our data, our security practices, our training mechanisms, our onboarding, our talent, the different technologies that we have in order to be successful at scale in this multi-vendor structure, which is one of the avenues that we're seeing many of our service partners utilizing for growth, leveraging the skills that they have in their core business and taking it to a different install base. So very relevant topic. During November, we're going to be at Medtronic for our last service journey day uh, of the year, more focused around the remote support, and I'll be sharing more details on that as we get closer to the date. And during this last quarter of the year, we're going to do an earlier connect collection than last year on the voice of the contact center agent, so that we let give it enough time to breathe, be in a position to share results at the start of 2026. And similarly with the KPIs and metrics survey, understand at the end of the year what was the achievement, the attainment of the goals that we set out in the weeks that we're currently at, and how that's going to influence the vision for 2027. Finally, A quick reminder for those of you that didn't join in the first minute or so, this is really a collection of in-person and digital events that are informed by the research that we conduct, the surveys that you as a community participate on, so that we can build these benchmarks and interpret and then take the conversation forward through the different webinars, podcasts, in-person events, the idea shares that we have throughout the year. I hope to see you digitally or in person at many of this. Hope to see all of you in Chicago come September. And if you have any questions, any feedback, please do reach out to me. Looking forward to hearing your voice and making 2026 a great year for everybody. Have a great rest of the week. Have a great 2026.